My name is Bilal, and for 20 years, my life was a uniform, a badge, and the unyielding certainty of law. I was a police officer, a protector of order, a man whose world was black and white, right and wrong, guilty and innocent. My faith, Islam, resonated deeply with this worldview. Allah, to me, was Al-Hakam, the judge, Al-Adla, the just. He was the ultimate lawgiver, whose perfection was manifest in the crystal-clear boundaries he had set for humanity. My prayers were precise, my fasting rigorous, my adherence to the Sunnah meticulous. I believed that righteousness was built brick by brick, through obedience, discipline, and the vigilant enforcement of divine and earthly laws. I saw myself as an instrument of that divine order, bringing justice to a chaotic world, whether by arresting criminals or by upholding the moral fabric of my community. My sermons at the local mosque, when I was asked to deliver them, often focused on the severity of Allah's judgment, the necessity of taqwa, the fear of God as the foundation of piety. My wife, Amani, was a different kind of believer. Her Islam was a tender flowing river of mercy and compassion. She spoke of Allah as Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahan, the most gracious, the most merciful, with a simple, childlike trust that sometimes baffled me. Bilal, she would say, her eyes soft, justice without mercy is cruelty. God's mercy encompasses all things. I would nod, agreeing in theory, but in my heart I knew that the world I navigated daily demanded a firm hand, a clear distinction between right and wrong. My son Tariq, a thoughtful university student, respected my profession, but often challenged my rigidity. Dad, he once mused, what if protecting people isn't just about catching the bad guys, but about understanding why they became bad guys? I dismissed it as youthful idealism. My worldview was solid, built on years of experience and unwavering faith. I was a man of the law, both human and divine, and I believed I was walking the straightest path to Allah's pleasure. I had no idea that the very concept of justice I held so dear was about to be dismantled, and that the God I served was about to reveal a face of infinite, shocking mercy that would shatter my certainties and rebuild my entire understanding of righteousness. I was about to be judged, not by the law, but by love. The day it happened began like any other Friday. I had led the dawn prayer, my heart feeling full of peace, a quiet sense of righteousness. The city was still waking up as I began my patrol, the streets wet with a lingering morning mist. The call came in just after 9, an armed robbery at a convenience store, a volatile situation, hostages involved. My training kicked in, my mind became a cold, precise instrument of strategy and procedure. We arrived on scene, the air thick with tension, the lessing blue lights reflecting off the wet pavement like an angry swarm of bees. The situation escalated fast. A suspect, young and terrified, burst from the store, a gun clutched in his trembling hand. He was high on something, his eyes wide and unfocused. He shouted incoherently, waving the weapon wildly. I drew my service pistol, my instincts taking over, years of drills and split-second decisions converging into this single critical moment. Deck the weapon, I commanded, my voice sharp, authoritative. He didn't. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a desperate, animal fear, and then, a flicker of something else, a profound suicidal despair. He heated the gun, not at me but towards his own head. In that fraction of a second my training screamed threat. My mind registered imminent danger. My finger tightened on the trigger. But then, a flash of something unexpected. A prayer from Amani, a whisper of mercy, a memory of Tariq asking about why they became bad. In that infinitesimally small moment, a flicker of hesitation. The young man's eyes, wide with terror, suddenly looked like a lost child's. A thought, a question, pierced through my professional resolve. Could I reach? Before I could act on it, before I could drop my gun and take a step forward, the world exploded. A shot rang out, not from my gun but from a civilian bystander, a nervous man trying to be a hero, who misjudged the situation and fired wildly. The bullet wasn't meant for me, but it found me. A searing white-hot impact ripped through my chest, a monstrous crushing force that stole my breath, my vision and all sensation. My body crumpled, the concrete rushing up to meet me. My last conscious thought, a desperate, bewildered whisper, was a question, was that justice? And then, nothing. Absolute, silent, empty darkness. But the darkness was not the end. The next sensation was one of impossible lightness, a profound and immediate release from pain and weight. I was floating, I was perfectly calm, perfectly peaceful, and I was lighter than a feather, drifting effortlessly upward. I was hovering above the chaotic street scene, looking down. Below me, my colleagues were swarming, their faces grim, urgent. The suspect was on the ground, disarmed, weeping, and there on the wet pavement, my own body lay still, a growing pool of crimson staining my uniform. I watched, detached and serene, as if observing a stranger's tragedy, feeling a pang of sorrow for the crumpled figure, for the man who had lived and died by the law. I could hear faintly the urgent voices of the paramedics. Chest wound. GG. No pulse. He's gone. Their words, so final, so absolute, registered with a strange indifference. I felt no fear, no grief, just a quiet curiosity about what came next. The scene below began to dim, the vibrant chaos of the emergency fading into a uniform, oppressive gray. The sounds of the world, the sirens, the voices, all melted into a profound, suffocating silence. The peaceful detachment I felt shattered, replaced by a growing, creeping dread. I was no longer above the street. I was somewhere else, a place that was vast, empty and utterly devoid of warmth. It was a realm of cold, sterile gray, a desolate landscape that seemed to stretch into infinite nothingness. This was the space between, a cosmic waiting room. But it was not empty, it was filled with shadows. The gray expanse was not empty, it was filled with shadows, whispers, and a profound, pervasive coldness that seeped into my very being, a cold that was far more bone-chilling than any winter wind. These were not the demons of sermons, not creatures of fire and brimstone. They were far more subtle, far more insidious. They were the manifestations of my own spiritual rigidity, my chosen judgments, given form in this desolate reality. A towering figure, made of swirling, indistinct gray mist, appeared before me. It resonated with a profound profounds of cosmic, unyielding law, a chilling reflection of my own past self. You sought justice, Bilal, its voice whispered, a dry rustling sound like countless dead leaves skittering across a barren plain. You believed in the rigid enforcement of boundary. You believed in strict accounting. Here, there is no escape from your own accounting. Other shadows, smaller but equally chilling, swirled around me like static on a dying screen. They were the faces of those I had arrested, those I had judged, those I had failed to see beyond their crime. The young man from the convenience store appeared, his eyes still wide with fear, but now also with a deep, silent accusation. I felt his profound despair, the crushing weight of a life of bad choices, the desperation that had driven him to that robbery. I felt how my own professional detachment, my focus on the law, had meant I had seen him as a criminal, not as a suffering soul. I saw a colleague I had silently judged for being too soft, too lenient with minor offender. I felt his quiet compassion, his belief in a second chance, a human empathy that I, in my self-righteousness, had dismissed as weakness. My own wife, Amani, appeared in a flicker of shadow, and I felt her deep, aching sadness for my hardened heart, for the love I held back in the name of discipline. They didn't speak. Their silent, sorrowful presence was the judgment, the undeniable proof of the ripples of spiritual injury I had created by prioritizing law over love, justice over compassion. This was a consequence, a harvest of my own rigidity. My entire life, my entire mission as an enforcer of order, felt like a catastrophic failure. My confident detachment from the suffering of others, my focus on their external actions, rather than their internal pain, had created an ultimate suffocating isolation. The terror that bloomed within me was not the fear of pain or torment, it was the terror of ultimate regret, the harshing realization that I had chosen to live a life separate from true connection, always looking at the crime, never truly seeing the human heart. There was no escape, there was no defense, there was no legal precedent that could help me here. In that moment of soul-crushing despair, stripped of my badge, my uniform, my very identity as a man of the law, all my carefully constructed walls of certainty crumbled into dust. All that remained was a raw, terrified spark of consciousness, a small, lost soul, utterly alone in a universe that felt utterly indifferent, a universe I had helped create by my own unyielding judgment. My knowledge of criminal codes, of legal procedures, of tactical operations, it was all utterly useless. All that remained was a single desperate, broken plea, a name I had used as a declaration of God's absolute justice, but now I uttered it as a final hopeless yearning for connection, a raw cry from the depths of a truly broken heart, for something I was told was greater than justice. Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, oh most merciful, please, help me. My cry, a raw, formless plea from the depths of my being, resonated in that desolate gray void, piercing the silence, and it was heard. From the very center of the gray expanse, a single point of light appeared. It was infinitesimally small, yet it pulsed with a warmth that I could feel even across the vast, cold emptiness. The shadowy accusers recoiled, their forms dissolving like mist in the face of an impossible dawn. The cold, sterile gray did not flee. It was absorbed by the light, transformed, infused with a vibrant, living energy. The light expanded, not like an explosion, but like a sunrise unfolding in fast motion, its colors bleeding into the void, turning the bleak expanse into a landscape of unimaginable beauty. The oppressive silence was replaced by a sound, a low, resonant hum, that was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. It was a music that felt like a billion lullabies and 1,000 triumphant anthems all at once. The sound of pure, unadulterated peace. I was no longer in the gray void. I was floating, utterly weightless, immersed in an ocean of this conscious, living light. It was pure, unconditional love, a love that knew every one of my judgmental thoughts, every cutting word, every moment of my profound spiritual progress. It knew all of this, and it held me anyway, without judgment, without condemnation, with a tenderness that shattered my broken heart into a million pieces and then reassembled it, whole and new, cleansed by its embrace. It was the love of a parent who adores their child, not for being perfect, but simply for being. From the heart, this infinite, loving presence, a figure began to coalesce. He was not an old man with a beard, nor a traditional Islamic figure. He was a being of pure, radiant light, vast and powerful, yet whose eyes held an intimacy that made me feel utterly safe, utterly known. His smile was a homecoming, a recognition that pierced my very soul. My theological mind, the rigid enforcer, screamed in protest, "No, this cannot be. This is a trick. This is deception. This is not the Allah of the law." But my heart, the heart that had been broken open in the darkness, knew the truth. This was the love I had been crying out for. This was the ultimate reality. It was Allah the most beautiful. He knelt down, so his face, which was made of pure liquid light, was level with mine. He spoke, not with his mouth, but with a direct flow of understanding into my mind. A voice that was pure love and infinite compassion. A voice that was both thunder and whisper. "Bilal," he said, and my name in his voice felt like the most precious word in the universe. The sound of being fully seen and fully accepted. "I heard you. You are not alone. You are home. I have been waiting for you to call, not with your mind, but with your heart. You feared my justice, but my mercy encompasses all things. You sought order, but I seek love. All my fear, all my shame, all the crushing weight of my isolation and regret, dissolved like salt in water. I was safe, I was loved, I was home." Bilal, the voice of the beloved communicated, its presence a constant, warm embrace, its smile holding all the joy of creation. "You have seen the consequence of judgment without mercy. You have felt the loneliness that comes from building walls of law, even walls of truth, that separate you from my creation. Now let us look at the choices that made the ripples in your life, not through the lens of right and wrong, but through the lens of compassion and its absence, through the lens of love. My entire life, every moment, every thought, began to play out around us, not like a recording but as if we were standing inside the memories themselves, experiencing them from every perspective. We were back on patrol. A few years ago, I was arresting a young man for petty theft. He was weeping, desperate, trying to explain he was stealing food for his hungry siblings. I remembered thinking, law is law, no exceptions. I remained stern, unyielding, focused on procedure. But now, Allah let me feel what the young man felt. I felt his profound shame, the ache of hunger in his stomach, the desperation to feed his family, and then the crushing despair as he faced a rigid system that saw only his crime, not his suffering. I felt how my own professional detachment, my focus on the letter of the law, had meant I had seen him as a criminal, not as a suffering soul, a child of God. This was a sharp, gray ripple I had created, with my lack of compassion. The scene changed. We were at the mosque. A new convert, a young woman struggling with the complexities of her new faith, approached me after prayers, timidly asking for clarification on a nuanced point of doctrine. I remembered answering her with a dry, academic explanation, using complex Arabic terms, proud of my knowledge. Now, Allah let me feel what the young woman felt. I felt her genuine yearning for understanding, her desire to connect with the divine, and then the quiet frustration, the feeling of being too small, too unlearned, to grasp the truth. My intellectual pride had built a wall between her faith and the mercy of God, a cold, unloving ripple. Allah didn't scold me, He simply held my hand, and the love pouring from Him was a gentle, healing sorrow that transformed my shame into a desperate longing to mend what I had broken. You see, beloved Bilal, he communicated, his voice infinitely patient, the ripples are real. Every choice, every non-choice, every moment given or withheld, creates a ripple. The world is a vast ocean, and you are always throwing a stone. The golden ones shimmer with joy and connection, and the gray ones cloud the water with sadness and regret. My justice is perfect, but it is a justice born of love, a justice that seeks to heal and restore, not merely to punish. You focused on the punishment, and you missed the healing. We saw other scenes, the time I chose to give a homeless man a meal, and I felt the surge of gratitude and simple human connection he experienced, a brilliant golden ripple, expanding far beyond that small moment. The time I silently judged a colleague for a personal failing, and Allah showed me the unseen burdens they carried, the quiet struggles that my judgment had only intensified. The lesson was devastatingly simple. My life wasn't about enforcing rules, it was about connection. It was about whether I was creating love or letting isolation take root, whether I was truly seeing the human heart behind the action. The greatest sorrow was not in my sins, but in the missed opportunities, the golden ripples of mercy I had failed to make, the love I had failed to transmit by being present and compassionate. When the life review ended, I was left in a state of profound humility, utterly broken, yet completely loved. The proud police officer, the rigorous enforcer of law, the confident imam, all these identities were stripped away, leaving only a raw, eager and weeping soul. My Lord, my God, my spirit cried out, my voice thick with tears, I was so blind. I thought I was serving your justice, but I was denying your mercy. I thought I was bringing order, but I was causing pain. What is the truth of justice then? What is the reality I was so blind to? Allah looked at me, His eyes burning with a divine love that was both tender and authoritative. Bilal, He communicated, His voice resonating with a truth that shook the very foundations of my being. You and many of my beloved children have been taught of a distant, unknowable king, a God of law and justice, to be feared and obeyed. That truth is but a shadow of the fullness of my reality. My essence is love, my primary attribute is mercy. My justice is not separate from my mercy, it is an extension of it, a tool for healing and balance, not simply retribution. You separated them in your heart, and so you created a harshness that was not of me. The law is a riverbank I have created to guide the waters of my mercy to my creation. You spent your life studying the hardness of the riverbank, and you forgot the life-giving water it contained. You sought to be a judge, but I desire you to be a healer. He then showed me a vision that transcended all my earthly concepts of law and order. I saw the entire cosmos, not as a chaotic mess needing strict enforcement, but as a vast, living tapestry of interconnected souls, all woven together by threads of love and compassion. When a thread was broken by an act of injustice,
or cruelty. It did not need punishment alone. It needed mending. It needed healing. I saw that every sincere act of compassion, every choice of forgiveness, every moment of empathy, was a thread of brilliant golden light, actively mending the broken parts of the tapestry, flowing from creation, through Allah's boundless mercy, and back to the Father. He was not a judge on a distant throne, tallying sins. He was the ultimate healer, constantly weaving, constantly mending, constantly restoring. My Father desires all his children to live in harmony, to be restorers of the broken threads, to be conduits of my boundless mercy. Allah communicated, "Your mission, Bilal, is to be a bridge, to be a light in the darkness of human cruelty and indifference. Your mission is to declare what you have seen, to break down the walls of harsh judgment and fear, to testify to the absolute sovereignty of my mercy." A part of me, the human part, cried out in desperate protest, "They will never believe me. My own colleagues will laugh at me. My community will say I am weak, that I have gone soft. My life's work, my reputation, my family, I will lose everything." Allah looked at me, and in his eyes I saw not condemnation, but the deep, sorrowful patience of God, the wisdom that understood the human heart better than I understood myself. "I did not promise you an easy path, Bilal," he said, his voice firm but filled with an unwavering love. "But I promised you that I will be with you always. You will not be alone. Your testimony is it to convince by argument, but to awaken by love. You will speak the truth I have shown you, not to win a debate about justice, but to ignite a fire of compassion in their hearts. Go and declare it. Tell the world what you have seen. Tell them that my mercy precedes my wrath. Tell them that true justice is born of love, and that the only law that truly binds is the law of compassion. This is my command. This is your life's true purpose." The weight of the command was immense, terrifying in its implications, but the truth was undeniable, and the love was absolute. My soul, broken and remade, finally surrendered to the impossible. "Yes, my Lord," I whispered, the words a sacred vow. "I will go." The moment I consented, the world of light and love, the divine presence of Allah, vanished. I was not gently guided back. I was hurled, thrown, slammed back into the broken, aching prison of my physical body with a violent, agonizing jolt. A convulsive gasp for air tore through my lungs, a scream of pure, searing pain. My eyes flew open to the chaotic, flashing reality of an ambulance interior. A paramedic's face, startled and disbelieving, was inches from mine. "He's breathing. He's got a pulse. I don't believe it," he yelled to his partner.
We have brain activity. He's back. The next few days were a disorienting blur of the intensive care unit, of beeping machines and hushed, astonished conversations between doctors and nurses. You looked at my charts, then at me, then at each other, shaking their heads in professional bewilderment. "Clinical death for at least 12 minutes, one doctor told Imani, his voice strained with disbelief. The gunshot wound was catastrophic. The extent of his injuries, combined with the lack of significant brain damage, there is no medical precedent. It's truly a miracle." They were scientists looking at a shattered compass, unable to comprehend the divine territory I had just traversed. Amani was a constant, solid presence at my side. Her face was a landscape of profound relief and exhaustion, her prayer beads constantly moving through her fingers. "Alhamdulillah," she would whisper, kissing my hand. "Allah is the greatest. He has returned you to us." Her prayers of gratitude were heartfelt, directed to the God we had always known. My son, Tariq, was there too, his face a mixture of joy and bewilderment. My thoughtful son tried to explain it away with scientific possibility, however remote. "Dad, the human body is amazing. The brain's response to trauma. It's incredible what it can do to survive." He loved me. He was relieved I was alive, but he was trying to bring me back into the world I had left, while I was grappling with how to bring the world I had seen into his. I was physically broken, but my spirit was more whole and alive than ever. I was filled with a love and a purpose so profound it felt like a star burning in my chest. But the message I carried was a fire that would either purify or destroy everything I had ever held dear. My identity, my family, my community, my entire life's work, All of it stood on one side of a deep, terrifying chasm. On the other side stood Allah, in his overwhelming compassionate love, waiting for me to take the first step onto the bridge he had asked me to become a messenger for the urgency of mercy. My physical recovery was a long and agonizing journey, but it was nothing compared to the spiritual reconstruction happening within me. My old identity as a stern police officer, a strict enforcer of law, felt like a costume I could no longer wear. The world I had returned to seemed both more vibrant and more shrouded in a pervasive, gray, spiritual blindness. I saw the judgment everywhere, not just in courtrooms, but in the eyes of neighbors, in the casual disdain for others, the focus on external actions over inner suffering, the fear of divine justice over the surrender to his boundless mercy. These were no longer just observations. They were the gray haze I had seen, the subtle, insidious spiritual poison, the very things preventing humanity from truly healing. My old life, my uniform, my badge, my patrol car, they all felt like hollow, meaningless props from a play that had ended. How could I enforce a human law when I knew the true law was love, and so many were blind to it? I tried to share my message, my urgent warning and profound revelation. I told Amani, my wife, first. Amani, I whispered, my voice raw with emotion. When I was in that darkness, after the shot, I called out to Allah, and he answered, and he showed me, his mercy is greater than anything. His justice is part of his love. I was wrong about everything. Amani listened, her eyes filled with fresh tears, this time not just of joy at my survival, but of a quiet, profound understanding that resonated with her lifelong gentle faith. "Oh Bilal," she whispered, stroking my hair, "that is the Allah I have always known in my heart, a God of infinite compassion, who wants us to be merciful as he is merciful." My heart always knew that. Her acceptance was a healing balm, a confirmation that the love and urgency I had experienced were not a delusion. My son Tariq listened to my story with a lawyer's patience, but with a new, open curiosity. "Dad," he said, his voice thoughtful, "your experience, it sounds like a spiritual revolution for you. I may not understand the metaphysics, but the idea of integrating compassion into justice, that's something I've always believed in." He accepted the fruit of my experience, my newfound peacefulness, my heightened empathy, my focus on restorative justice, even if he couldn't accept the tree it grew from. I realized then that my journey would be one of profound loneliness, in my absolute certainty among many, but also of unexpected quiet connections with open hearts, among others. My police career, my former goals of climbing the ranks, they all began to lose their grip on me. The passion for enforcing external order was replaced by an urgent desire to mend internal brokenness, to awaken others to the healing power of compassion. I saw that every harsh judgment, every moment of withheld empathy, was a missed opportunity for Allah's mercy to flow through me. The path ahead was clear though terrifying. I could not, would not, deny the truth I had seen. My reputation as a strong, unwavering officer was now a burden, a constraint on the message I was compelled to share. I resigned from the police force, a decision that shocked my colleagues and baffled my superiors. They saw it as a breakdown, a man losing his nerve after a severe trauma. I saw it as a liberation. I was no longer Bilal, the enforcer. I was simply Bilal, a humble, broken and remade man who had glimpsed the boundless mercy of Allah. The first few months were a wilderness of grief and isolation from my old life. My former colleagues saw me as weak, perhaps even mentally unwell. Many friends drifted away, uncomfortable with my newfound urgency and the radical nature of my message. In my moments of deepest despair, when the loneliness felt like a physical weight, I would close my eyes and remember the promise Allah had given me. "I will be with you always, in every moment you choose to be merciful." And in the silence my heart, I would feel a warmth, a peace, a presence that assured me I was not alone. The love I had felt in the light was not just a memory, it was a living wellspring within me, a source of courage I never knew I possessed. Stripped of my badge and my professional identity, I had to find a new way to be the messenger I was commanded to be. I started with the one thing I had left, my story. I began speaking, not in the crisp procedural language of law enforcement, but in simple direct accounts of my experience, which I shared at local community centers, at interfaith gatherings, and online. I spoke of the overwhelming love, the terrifying truth of judgment without mercy, the profound reality that Allah's mercy encompasses all things. I expected ridicule, but something surprising happened. People began to listen, a few at first, then dozens, then hundreds. I received emails from all over the world. Some were from Muslims, who confessed to feeling a similar yearning for a more personal, loving God, for a faith that was more about heart than just rules. Your story has melted my fear of judgment, one woman wrote. It has shown me the true face of Ar-Rahman. I received emails from people of other faiths, from spiritual seekers, from those who had lost faith entirely, all resonating with the universal truth of love and compassion. Thank you for putting words to what I always felt, one wrote. But the most profound change happened in my own home. My son Tariq, who had listened with an open heart from the beginning, became my strongest ally. He joined me in community outreach, helping me connect with at-risk youth, setting up restorative justice programs. He saw the peace, the radical love, the profound authenticity that radiated from me, even in the face of widespread skepticism. Dad, he told me one evening, his eyes shining with tears, I always knew justice could be compassionate. You just went to the source to prove it. Now you live what you preach, and that's all I need to know. My life is in a quiet pilgrimage, a journey of active witness. I am no longer Bilal, the stern police officer. I am simply Bilal, a humble, broken, and remade man, who has been given a glimpse into the boundless mercy of Allah. I have no official title, no grand platform, no large congregation. My life is a series of small, quiet encounters, of sharing my story, one heart at a time. My wife Amani continues to be my steadfast companion, her simple, profound faith, now fully aligned with the overwhelming truth I carry. She saw the genuine transformation in me, the unwavering love, the profound peace that had replaced my old rigidity. One evening, after months of my quiet witness, she came to me. Bilal, she said, her voice soft, I always spoke of Allah's mercy, but you have brought it to life. You are a living testament to Ar-Rahman. Teach me how to truly be a vessel of that mercy, just like you. Her words were the healing of my deepest wound, the answer to a prayer I had not dared to pray. My son Tariq still holds his legal framework, but he now sees the profound human and spiritual impact of my experience. He has dedicated his legal career to restorative justice, seeing every client not just as a case, but as a soul to be understood and helped. He sees the goodness, even if he doesn't accept the literal supernatural explanation, for my change. My life is now a living declaration of the truth I was shown, that Allah's mercy is limitless, and that true justice flows from a heart filled with compassion. And so, I feel compelled to speak you now, directly, from my heart, you who are listening, perhaps from a position of faith, perhaps from skepticism, perhaps from a different life path altogether. I am here to tell you with the certainty of a man who has died and been returned to life, that the God you seek, the source of all love and truth, is far grander, far more intimate, and far more merciful than any of us have ever imagined. The walls that divide us, the walls of judgment, of prejudice, of unforgiveness, they do not exist in the presence of Allah's boundless mercy. They are human constructs, built out of our own fear and lack of compassion. The message I was sent back to declare is not a threat of impending doom, but the most loving warning, the most urgent invitation. His mercy is greater than anything you can imagine. It is not a call to abandon justice, but a call to temper it with bounds compassion. It is not a call to fear God, but to fall in love with His infinite mercy. So I ask you, I implore you, do not live in fear of God's justice. Live in surrender to His mercy. Do not wait for a perfect world to be compassionate. Be compassionate now, and you will begin to create that perfect world. Do not judge others, for Allah alone is the judge, and His judgment is rooted in a love beyond our comprehension. Choose to be a conduit of His mercy. Choose to be a healer, a bridge builder, a source of peace in a world so desperately in need of. Every act of kindness, every moment of forgiveness, every choice of compassion, these are the ways you truly to Allah. Please,
Open your heart, embrace his mercy, and be merciful, just as he is most merciful.